Okay, so welcome to our We at Heart group facilitators. One of the things that we wanted to do was to provide each of you with some really simple information about what you could do should anyone in your group experience an adverse reaction. Now, the vast majority of the people in your groups are going to have a pleasant experience. We know that. We've run enough of these groups to know that the vast majority of people really enjoy themselves and have some really positive and pleasant experiences. But every now and again, of course, there's always the chance when people engage in these types of practices that someone could have an adverse experience. And so what we wanted to do was put together a really, really simple, quick guide for you, just a few things that you could remember and you could do to help someone should they experiencing something more unpleasant. So what I wanted to do actually was to invite our friend Josh Dixon to share some information with you. So Josh is one of our HeartMath coaches. Josh is also an accredited EMDR practitioner and an accredited FDAP drug and alcohol professional. Josh is also the owner of an organisation called Resurface UK, and Josh engages in some really innovative approaches to helping people with trauma. So their retreats that he runs covers areas like trauma and creativity, resilience, positive psychology, those types of things. So he's just the type of guy who can share some really useful information with us. So one of Josh's areas of expertise is trauma, and so Josh, the vast majority of people are going to have a pleasant experience, but every now and again, like I said, sometimes someone can have an adverse experience. In your experience, what type of thing could potentially happen to somebody? How might it manifest itself?
That's a great question, and I just want to preface this chat by just saying that I do a lot of work with people with very sort of intense or severe PTSD or developmental trauma issues, and in what we call trauma confrontation work I do with these very, as I said, extremely sometimes severe cases. 90% of the time we have no adverse or what we call ab reactions to the work. So it's incredibly rare. And I just want to put that out there so that it's going to be even rarer in these kind of groups. But it is a possibility because when you are meditating, you're sometimes taking a deeper look inside, and sometimes things that maybe you've been repressing might come to the surface, etc. And that's just the way it is. And actually that can be very useful going forward.
Of course, yeah.
But in terms of what can happen is we need to hold on to a certain type of concept, what we call the window tolerance. And the window tolerance is this space that we are able to tolerate all our thoughts, feelings, body sensations, and we're able to make calm, rational decisions. And if you get tipped out of that window of tolerance, it could be by an extreme image or a sound or a smell or a style of thinking or something you connect with inside. You're going to have two types of reaction that could be along the lines of what we're looking at here. You'd either become what we call hyper aroused. And traditionally that's known as fight, flight, or freeze. And when you're in any of those states, your heart rate is very high. You might be very agitated. The client in the room might start pacing, or they might start breathing very fast, or they might want to leave the room, or they might become angry and a bit aggressive. But what you've got to remember there is that their heart rate has gone right up. And what's happened is the prefrontal cortex is shut down, and they're very much in the limbic system. So they're very emotional in that state. And what we need to do is we need to, actually, I'll come to that in a sec. I'll just explain the other reaction that we have is what we call a hypo arousal state. And when you're hypo aroused, your heart rate goes right down. And that will be, you go into what we'll call either a dissociative or submissive state. And when someone's in that state, they may kind of sort of blank out, or zone out, or they might start speaking slowly or something like that. And in a way, traditionally you might want to wave your hand in front of their eyes, or click your fingers, etc. And so they're the two states that someone is going to go into when they abreact. So we need to have certain techniques to work with that. So if we take the first one, the hyper arousal state, someone's heart rate has gone right up and they're agitated. They're not particularly able to listen or focus into what you're saying. So what you will want to do is, I would start with something very basic, like saying, And we'll move on. The breathing is ultimately the best thing for that. But sometimes we can't get there. So what we have to do first is we have to just basically ground someone. So the first thing I would do is, if they're standing up, encourage them to sit down. If they're sitting down, great. But ask them to unfold their legs if their legs are folded, and just really notice both feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And that, people are often able to do that. It's a very simple, basic thing, and often they can do that. And then following that, I would just ask them to maybe identify 3 blue things in the room. Yeah. And then following that, 3 green things, and say 3 red things. It doesn't matter the color. It's just, and they'll say things like, oh, your jumper, that picture in the background, that pen, something like that. And by doing that, you're bringing them very much into the present and back down.
Okay.
And then that's your moment to introduce the breathing techniques that HeartMath is so famous for. And so I find the quick coherence technique is probably the best place to start. So just encouraging them to focus on breathing through the heart center, evening the breath, and then sometimes even breathing with them. Trying to get them into that sort of
maybe count the breath for them. Maybe count 4 or 5 seconds.
Exactly.
In, 4 or 5 seconds out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll find that when they're quite agitated, 4 or 5 seconds is too much. So maybe 3 seconds. But you'll figure that out quite quickly. And then the great thing is then you can start introducing those positive memories or concept of something like a safe place, etc. That they can connect to, start releasing the DHEA, calming the central nervous system down, bringing because it's what's happening in that state is the sympathetic nervous system is really taking over. So what we're doing is trying to bring them down. We're trying to balance the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So I often find that breathing actually is more effective than the more traditional yogic breathing of trying to get the parasympathetic to kick in, because
the longer out breaths.
The longer out breath it's great when someone is relatively calm, but it's often quite hard to do when they're agitated.
To go straight from the sympathetic into the parasympathetic, it's kind of tricky. You need to go to balance point before you can.
That's what I find in my experience. So so the basic grounding, feet on the ground, looking around, identifying things in the room, and then introducing quick coherence technique to start with, and then introducing some kind of positive memory or positive experience, just to really lift that release of DHEA, bring the norepinephrine in the system down, bring the cortisol levels down. And that would be the most basic and simplest and probably most effective way of doing that. And then you can also, very simple techniques, to offer them a glass of water.
Okay.
Because water actually triggers the parasympathetic nervous system as well. So that old English tradition of giving someone a cup of tea, it really works actually.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So just to sort of summarize on that bit then. So you're running a session, everything seems to be going away. Well, you open your eyes as a group facilitator and you notice someone's looking quite agitated across the room, shifting around a lot maybe, or they might be kind of like, whatever that you recognize. Okay, so this person's struggling a little bit. Don't necessarily need to rush straight in, but if you recognize, okay, they need a bit of help, then you're saying, just go up to them. Just say to them, okay, can you feel your feet on the ground, or can you put your feet on the ground? And actually, I think probably as the group facilitator, if you stay nice and coherent, then that's probably the best thing that you can do for yourself, because you're managing your own state.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be more aware, more intuitive as to what's going on for them and how you can help them. But just gently over. Okay, you feel your feet on the ground, and then you're saying, can be useful to say, can you spot 3 different colors, 3 different blue things, 3 different red things, whatever. Just give them a bit of space. And then when you've sort of disrupted the abreaction, then focusing on the breath, and you think the heart focus and the heart focus breathing, get them to a good place, and then maybe even say, okay, now just try and recall something or someone you care for or appreciate.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, so simple enough. Great, thank you.
And then you can always introduce the glass of water.
The glass of water, so ideally have some water in the room, everyone. That's a good idea. I mean, people get thirsty anyway, so try and lay on some water in the room. Great. Okay. Cool.
And
so thank you.
Something important to recognize there is don't touch the person. A lot of people want to touch or put their arm or something, and that can be a bit too soon.
Right.
Someone can feel a bit they can jump back or because they're
Great.
not exactly there. So
Perfect.
touch is a great thing when someone feels safe.
Yeah.
But when they don't feel safe, touch can be can come across as a bit threatening, even if it's not meant that way.
Sure. Okay, great advice. So don't touch them, but be near them. Make sure that you're coherent, your voice is nice and calm, and then the interventions, like you said.
Exactly, because like in trauma focused yoga, for example, the yoga teacher never leaves the mat. They don't come and adjust people or touch them for that very reason.
Great.
And then, so to go to the other reaction that you're going to see, the hypo arousal state. Certain things, this one you might have to try different things. When someone's in a hypo arousal state, they're not going to be running out of the room or anything. So you need to be there to kind of watch them as they come back into that window of tolerance. And so you want to be gentle without spooking them. Yeah, it's a bit like someone, when someone's asleep, but they can appear awake, and you don't want to sort of shake them in because they're like, oh. But what you want to do there is, first of all, you can literally do some certain things like clicking your fingers, hey, are you there, etc. One technique I learned in a training is if you've got a very soft cushion or soft toy or something, you could gently throw it at them. Okay. And sometimes they'll catch it. Yeah. And come back in if they feel that's appropriate. Sometimes it might not be, but that, or a cushion or something. Yeah. Okay. It's got to be something that's soft and not going to soft. Yeah. Yeah. But like that will bring them up into the moment. And then another really powerful tool to have in your kit is two things come to mind, actually. One is if you have some kind of smelling salt or smelling oil, or even I sometimes use like a scented geranium leaf, etc. But a really strong smell, if you ask them just to smell something, it brings you right into the present. It's what I call a mindfulness hack. Yeah. In terms of, it brings you straight back in. Yeah. Well, smells very powerful, isn't it? It goes straight into the into the amygdala anyway. So goes straight in. Yeah. So you use a tool like that, and it can just, wow, suddenly someone's back in, and they're not where they were. And sometimes just having like a smooth, cold, cool object is a nice thing as well, asking someone to feel it, etc. Yeah. Well, like a pebble or something? Or? Yeah, like a pebble, exactly, like a pebble. But don't throw the pebble at them. Don't throw let them hold the pebble, okay. Yeah. But something like that often will help bring someone back in. Yeah. Yeah. So as you can sort of see that that bringing someone out of the hypo-arousal state is a sort of gentler experience. Even, the clicking of the fingers would be the most hectic part of that. Yeah, yeah. But just you're bringing someone back in. Great. Okay. And that's going to be rarer. Yeah. But still, it's important to acknowledge that happened, and then you can move on to just some gentle, coherent breathing. Yeah. And take it from there. Super. Okay. Yeah. So great. So I guess what we need to make sure is that people don't confuse just the general sort of, people feeling a little bit dazed and spaced out when they've come out of a deep meditation. That's entirely normal. And we're going to see a lot of that, aren't we? That whole kind of like, oh, wow, back in the room type thing, sure. When you've had a really deep, especially internal experience, or you had, visualizations or whatever, that's normal. What we're talking about is something that's clearly more than that, and it's a much more disassociated type. Yeah, or it's just that they're not coming back in. They're not coming back in. Yeah. That's what, yeah. So when someone goes like, oh wow, yeah, God, they're coming back in because they're expressing it, but someone's just so stuck there. Yeah. Not really saying anything. And imagine that someone that is usually quite a lively person. You're gonna have to use your sort of intuition there just to sort of feel the group and stuff. But if someone's not coming back in, then you sort of just gently use some of those techniques there. Yeah, great. Okay, so again, the extent to which you're coherent is going to help you pick up on this anyway. You're just going to get that intuitive sense that actually, no, that person's just a bit dazed. That's fine. Whereas that person, actually, I do need to do something here. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, so what we're saying there then is the kind of like the disrupt the sort of clicking the fingers, not too aggressively or whatever, but try and bring them in like that. You're saying as well, it could be useful to have something that smells quite strongly. So maybe a little, I don't know, make a little nice smelling oil or some smelling salts, like you said, or a mint leaf or something like that could be really handy just to have with you. There's something soft you mentioned as well, which you could, sort of gently throw to them or give to them, get them to hold. And then there's something that's cool and smooth, maybe like a pebble or something like that. That could, again, anything to just sort of bring them back into the circle of the present.
Into the present, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because
Cool.
that's when someone's dissociated, they're not in the present. Whereas when someone's hyper aroused, they're sort of, think of it, they're too much in the present, and you're trying
Yeah.
to bring them back. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're hyper alert.
Wonderful.
So that's what you're doing, is you're just trying to get everyone back into that window of tolerance, and then and I've never seen these techniques fail.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
look, Josh, I really appreciate that. I'm hoping that we haven't spooked people too
yeah,
much. Like we said before at the start, it's highly unusual. You know, it is rare that these things happen,
yeah,
but obviously we have a duty of care to the people that we're working with in our groups, and we just want to make sure that you, as our group facilitators, have these simple tools to hand, so that you're doing everything that you can. I mean, of course, if someone has a serious problem, then you're gonna need to call an ambulance or something like that.
yeah,
But heaven forbid that should happen. But of course, that's something we do need to bear in mind as well. If something serious happens to somebody, then we do obviously need to call emergency services as well. But that's really great. Thank you. I really appreciate your insights. These are really simple things that anybody could do. So to all of you group facilitators, run your groups, enjoy yourself. The vast majority of people are really going to benefit from what you're doing. They're really going to appreciate and find it enjoyable what you're doing. And then just have these little techniques up your sleeve should anything untoward happen,
yeah,
and then you're in a really, really good place to help people.
yeah,
And just to remind everyone as well that when you have new people starting in your We Add Heart group, then they do need to sign the simple disclaimer. So we need to make sure that people understand that what they're doing is, yes, it's going to be enjoyable, but also we do need them to sign that disclaimer. Which is normal for these types of things. We need to also protect ourselves as individuals and as an organization. Josh, thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing those insights, and I hope that all of you group facilitators out there has found that useful as well. If you have any questions at all, or you want clarification around anything, then just drop me an email at info@weaddheart.com, and me, Trang, someone else will come back to you and help you. Okay. Thank you very much.
yeah. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for having me. Bye.
Thanks, Josh. Bye.